So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another album review of The Chill Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today we're gonna talk about the brand new album by Deafheaven, and it's called Lonely People with Power, which came out this Friday. And for people that don't know Deafheaven is a band from San Francisco, California, and they play a mixture of like black metal with some shoegaze, some post metal. It's like a black gaze type of sound. They're a band that really came, like they got really popular when they released their second album, Sunbather. I believe it was like in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. But I gotta be honest, when that album came out, I saw there was a lot of praise, but I wasn't into it when it came out. And I remember a lot of people were calling them like hipster black metal because of the way they looked. But yeah, I don't care. To me, black metal sometimes is an acquired taste. Especially, I always had a problem with those shitty productions that they sound like they mix something in a basement and everything sounds bad. I don't know. I prefer it to. I can understand, but I thought the band was interesting, so I wasn't like blown away by Sunbather. But New Bermuda, the album they released after, I really enjoyed. Then they released an album in 2018 that I thought had a good mixture of like even some alternative stuff, like that sounded shoegazy or like a Smashing Pumpkins kind of vibe to it. And then their last album I actually bought on vinyl, Infinite Granite, and that one really was a more shoegaze type of record. It had some black metal elements some of the vocals, but it was like a more chill record. And I remember some of the fan base really didn't like that record, but I didn't mind because I like shoegaze. But on this follow-up, they did something that I think is very smart. They took elements of all their music, like black metal, post metal, and shoegaze and black gaze, and they did it all to create this new record, Lonely People with Power. So by the end of this review, the question that I will answer is this their best album yet? Let's find out, shall we? So first of all, this album is an hour in length, like an hour and 2 minutes. It's 12 tracks, but really it's like 9 tracks, and it has like 3 type of like interlude songs. Because there's 3 parts to this album. You have the first part, we start with Incidental 1, then you have Incidental 2, and finally Incidental 3. And Incidental 1 is an intro. Incidental 2 has Jay Matthews from Boy Harsher, and it's like a spoken word with some music to it. And the last one, the Incidental 3, features Paul Banks from Interpol, doing some spoken word. And it's interesting because my friend Señorita Sabrosura actually saw Interpol last year, and Deafheaven was the band that was opening for them. And she was like, this is really abrasive in some parts, but I can tell why they would tour with Interpol. And there's a song here that I'll mention that really has some Interpol vibes to it. So yeah, the first part has more songs. It has songs like Doberman and Magnolia, which start, and both have heavy riffing and black metal vocals. Like Doberman really out of the gate hits you like it has a fitting name, because when you think of a Doberman, they're not exactly a dog that you want to pet. You might be a little bit afraid of them. I remember growing up in the 80s, like Dobermans and Rottweilers were the dogs that you fear. Now it's the pit bulls, but you know they're all dogs. So that song has a lot of bite to it, and I think it's the 1-2 punch of Doberman and Magnolia really opened this album great. Magnolia has some evil riffing when it starts that I really like, and the black metal vocals on this album, I like it because I can understand what the singer is singing, and they're menacing, but also he knows when to pull back and be more soothing. So that's a great start. Then for if you like Infinite Granite and you love that shoegaze and black gaze sound, this album does not forget about that sound, because the next two songs, the Charter, the Garden Route and Heathen, they bring more of a black gaze onto those two tracks. Especially the Garden Route has some really beautiful passages to it, but obviously has that black metal vocals to it. And Heathen, I thought the start to that song is very beautiful, and I'm glad that this band is not afraid to show some beauty and melody in some of the songs, which I think makes sense with their name, like Deaf Heaven. I think the name explains the sound of this band completely, because the deaf part is like the more black metal stuff, and the heaven is more the shoegaze, dreamy stuff that they do on this album. So I thought that was great. Then they have one of the longest tracks on the record, Amethyst, and this is a mixture of harshness and beauty. The song is like almost 7.5, almost to 8 minutes, so it takes its time with the build-up. And I believe this is an album that really has a lot of like payoffs. So this is an album that the more you listen to it, the more things that you find. So it's rewarding you as a listener. That's why I took my time to review this album, and I really wanted to listen to this album, like let it sit and simmer with me, and that's what I did. That's a great track, and then it goes into the second part of the record, the incidental 2, and then you have like after that like mini like music interlude, you have one of the best tracks on the record with Revelator. This is one of the heaviest tracks on this record, but it's heavy, but like in the 4.5 minute mark, the song, it appears like to stop, but then you have like a beautiful soothing part, and I wasn't expecting that. I thought the song was over and a new song had begun. I'm like, no, this is still Revelator, and I like it because it's like out of like there's like some blast beats, harshness, and then you get like that subtle quiet moment that it's really soothing, and I think it gives like a great extra layer to that track. And then the black metal vocal returns, and I love it because it was a very unpredictable thing that I didn't think it was gonna happen. I just thought that the song had ended and another one began, so I was pleasantly surprised when it was still Revelator. Then you have the song Body Behavior, and that one musically sounds like it could be like an Interpol type of songs, but with some black metal vocals. And I find it that it's great placement for that song, because then you have the interlude that features Paul Banks. So yeah, Body Behavior, yeah, I really like the guitar on that one. It's pretty hypnotic, and I like that Deafheaven is not afraid to show their influences. If you see, I've seen them on episodes when they go to Amoeba in What's in My Bag, and they pick like Oasis, but then they pick like a black metal band. So they have some varied taste, and I think that makes them better musicians. That they're like, no, it has to be like pure black metal all the time. I like it that they pull in from their influences and they make it really good. And when they do that shoegaze, black gaze type of sound, I'm telling you, they can compete with like super like shoegazy type of bands, because they really do that sound really well. Then after Body Behavior, and Incidental Free, you have the two last tracks on the record, and that Incidental Free, that flows into the song Winona, which I think it's the best track on this record. It's just a beautiful, lush track. If you want to listen to this track, also watch the music video that dropped the day that they put out the album. The music video is just a beautiful film, and it has some subtle hints, because in the music video there's this woman waiting for this man. There's like a hill, and there's a Doberman. I'm like, Easter eggs on the music video. But the song, it's really a mixture of like it starts like very soft, and you get that black gaze soothing sound. It's very atmospheric, and it keeps building. And I just think it's a beautiful track. And also the vocals seem like very emotional, like you can feel the emotion that has that song. And this is an album that it starts like very harsh, but it's as the album progresses, it finds more beauty and gets like less harsher, like an abrasive, like at the beginning, which I thought was pretty interesting, like the flow of the album. So yeah, Winona is my standout track for this record. And then they finished the record with the marvelous Orange Tree, which this is a great black gaze ending. Beautiful vocals. I think there's some female vocals on some part of this song. I don't know who's doing them, but it's a great way to finish this album. And this album is an hour in length, but it does not, when you're listening to it, you're not like, oh, when is this going to end? No, actually, this album is like a journey from start to finish that I was very involved in it, and it seemed like it was shorter, even though it's a long album. And that to me is a testament of an amazing album. When you're not like paying attention to the time, you're just letting the music take you somewhere. And I think Deafheaven has gotten some shit in the past, but I think they're super talented musicians, and I love it that they can mix different genres and make them like cohesive and make it work. I think that Infinite Granite was a good album, but I can see why some fans were put off because it has no harsh vocals. It was more purely like a black gaze shoegaze record. But this one, I think what they did is they mix the best of like albums like Sunbather and other stuff with Infinite Granite, and they produced this album, Lonely People with Power. And to answer the question that I first pondered when I started this album review, is this their best album yet? I would say so. This is by far my favorite experience listening to Deafheaven. I think they're a band that they are not afraid to experiment and just push their sound. Some people will say, oh, this is hipster, this is sellout, but you know what? Who cares? At the end of the day, great music is great music. Yeah, they don't live in a forest and they don't have corpse paint, but you know what? It's the music. Yeah, you look at them and they're like more clean cut and don't have that aesthetic. But to me, aesthetic, like what's important? If you have a band that has like a great like look to it, but the music is shit, I rather than not having the look and having great music, and this is what Deafheaven does. So yeah, this is one of the best albums of the year so far, and I love this record. I didn't know if I was gonna love it that much because with Deafheaven, I've enjoyed them, but I wouldn't say that I've been the biggest fans of them. And when Sunbather came out, I really wasn't that impressed at the time. But this album is really impressive. It's really great. And I think that if you like black metal with that post metal and that shoegaze elements, you will enjoy this record. So I want to know from you, Couchers, what do you think of Deafheaven and Lonely People with Power? Comment, what are your favorite tracks from this record? And if you like the videos that I'm putting out, do not forget to give me a like and do not forget to subscribe. That helps me with the YouTube algorithm to get to more people like yourself. So until next time, Couchers, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.